Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Eye on the Eagles, your all-access pass to all things Avila Athletics. We're live from Tanner's at Redbridge, just 5 minutes away from the Avila campus. I'm Sports Information Director Tim Hackett. Our first guest today, head women's basketball coach Remy Wolfe. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thanks, Tim.
It's been a while since we've seen you on the show. We've got 2 wins to talk about since you were last with us, flashing back a couple of weeks ago to maybe Fieldhouse against Southwestern. 2 home wins for you guys, in fact.
Yeah.
So let's take you back to that Southwestern game, because I knew that was a game y'all had circled going in, and you guys played extremely well against the Mound Builders a few weeks ago.
Yeah, we did. We came out pretty hot. Finally started hitting some shots. We had been in a slump there, and we've kind of found our way shooting wise. Kind of evened out our percentages and really started to hit some shots, execute our offense, and then defensively we put in a press and ran it against Southwestern pretty well. So we were able to hold them. Defensively played well first half, and then second half we kind of let it get away from them and took over there.
One of the things that I heard about that team going in is, they're inexperienced, and which is true for a lot of teams, but they struggled to possess the ball. So from a coaching side, how do you attack a team like that to try to force them into mistakes and turnovers?
Yeah, we knew that, like you said, they're young. They play a lot of freshmen, a lot of new players, and we just really wanted to pressure as much as we could defensively, and that's why we worked on a press and really tried to trap them a lot and try to get them to turn it over a decent amount. So that was the goal going in, was the more we can turn them over, the better. What
do you think offensively was one of the biggest keys for the turnarounds? Like you said, the team had been in a little bit of a slump offensively, but it's not like you scored 100 points on them or anything like that, but
right.
You still beat them by 20 and were able to shut them down on that side, so while being very efficient on the offensive side. So what do you think was a reason for that turnaround into that game?
With us playing as many new players as we have, chemistry was one thing that we were lacking at the beginning of the year, and we're starting to figure that out a lot more. So kind of just knowing where your teammates are going to be at and hitting them in the right spot, where they like to catch and shoot, and hitting people when we're supposed to be hitting people, taking better shots, slowing it down, and executing our offense more to hit the shots that are designed for us to hit. So that was big for that game. We were able to run a lot of good actions offensively, and they were able to step up and hit some. And then with turnovers came transition points, so we were able to get some transition points too that we had been lacking. Yeah.
On that note, before we talk about any other games specifically, there are a couple exceptions to this, I guess, but you seem to have really settled into your starting five and your initial rotation at this point in the year. It's a third of the way through a 30-game season, which is hard to believe, but do you feel that that's fair? And if so, how did that come to be, that you've kind of got your at least go-to set with everybody else mixing in off that? Because like you said, you knew that it was going to take some time to create that consistency, to create that rotation, to create that camaraderie, if you will, because it is such a new team with a lot of new players mixed in.
Yeah. It took a little bit of time to get to that spot. But ultimately, I think just working through practice and different rotations and trying out a lot of different groups, I think this group works together well. Putting Aubrey in the starting five as the fifth member as a freshman took me a little bit of time to get to that point to start another freshman, but she's our best defender day in and day out, so she's in there as a defensive role for us, and we really needed that to start our games and then have more score defensive players coming off the bench instead of just trying to get a good group of scorers or more experience or whatever we were kind of looking for at the beginning. Kind of filling some holes where we lacked at the start of games is kind of what we were looking for, and that's how we ended up with Aubrey. And she just works her tail off all the time in practice, and it's just really consistent. So she earned that spot for herself.
And over the last couple of games, it seems as if the individual roles have started to shine through. Hannah Pinkson is a player that does a little bit of everything. Hannah Smith is really starting to get her scoring up over the last couple of games, which has been awesome to see.
Goodness, yes.
No kidding. I'm sure that was something that you've been hoping for, striving towards.
Oh, my
I'm
gosh,
sure.
yes. Yeah, it was a struggle at the beginning when we were shooting low percentages for your leading scorer coming back. But, I mean, you got to expect that. Defenses are going to key on her and only her. Based upon last year, so they played her very hard, and she just struggled offensively outside for the first few games, and we got to push through that, and I know that she'll push through that and be better, and she has, and she's she's been playing really, really well now. So it just took a little bit of time.
Well, you were a talented scorer yourself. So is there we know that, there are slumps for everybody and there are hot streaks for everybody. So she started the year on a cold stretch and is now in, I think it's fair to say, a hot stretch over her last 3 or 4 games. So what would be your advice to a player who starts off slow, knowing what they have the ability to do? Because we saw it from her last year and we're seeing it from her right now. And so, you know that there will be a cold stretch at some point. So rather than having that cold stretch now, let's say, what's your advice, what's your prognosis for somebody who starts off the year cold to try to get them back to that form as the year goes along?
Yeah. Like you said, usually it's just one cold stretch. So hopefully, I always hit mine like mid-season. So hopefully she got hers out of the way and we're hot the rest of the way. That's the goal. But for her, it's just like you lose confidence when you stop making shots and when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So, for her, it was just making sure that she's continuing to shoot and not stopping because that's her job and eventually it'll fall. And like just letting her know that we have all the confidence in the world in her to hit shots and she's going to. But sometimes you just got to get through it. And that's kind of what she had to do was grind it out and put the work in the gym in the unseen hours and make sure you're getting shots up and trying to fix anything that you might be doing kind of funky with your shot. And then also just finding other ways to score. And we've talked a lot about that with her, whether it be mid-range or all the way to the rim, getting to the free throw line, something like that. I kind of think that's when she had her breakthrough was at St. Mary's. She hadn't been shooting that great leading up to that game, and then she found her rhythm from just pull-up jumpers, mid-range, long twos, coming off of ball screens, and she hit 4 or 5 of those, and that kind of kick-started, her to starting to hit some more threes, and then, having 5 threes the other night. So, yeah.
How true then is the going theory, and this is true, I think, in other sports too, the idea of, you got to get the lid off and you start to see everything go in. So once, you're – again, regardless of how long the stretch runs, regardless of what sport we're talking about here, if you're a scorer who is expected to score and expected to score a lot, if you're going through a stretch where that is not happening, I understand how it can certainly be frustrating or disheartening or whatever you might say. So once it starts to happen, how true is it that once you start to see it go in, more tend to go in after that?
Oh, it's pretty true because it's just so mental. As a shooter or scorer or whatever. So once you start to see it go in, you're getting some confidence, you're feeling pretty good, and then you start shooting with confidence, playing with confidence, and just telling yourself, like, okay, yeah, I got this. This is what I do. I'm good at this. Next one's going in. You just play with a lot more confidence. So I think that's part of it. And then another part is just, fix if there's something you're doing different, just fixing it and adjusting, making adjustments throughout. So. But, yeah, I think that's true.
And I imagine part of the reason for the success, not to take nothing away from what Hannah's been doing recently, but is the rest of the team starting to gel into their identity, like what we were saying to start. And I don't want to expect you to give away, trade secrets or anything, but it seems like you guys have found something over the last month or so with Madeline Melton on the inside, blocking in pretty much. She has been lethal ever since that Emporia State game, it feels like, as your go-to option down low. She's been great, so I imagine that helps clear up lanes for the Hannahs and for Marley and for a lot of other players to do damage. But before we get to that, let's talk about Madeline specifically because it really seems as if that has become a go-to part of y'all's offense. It's worked extremely well.
Yeah, she's been playing great. she is great. It was just beforehand just learning when to get her the ball, how to find her, kind of just learning how to play with her as opposed to who plays kind of in and out a little bit. Not necessarily solely block back to the basket type of player, but can float around and make some jumpers and different things happen. And she's been, great. She had half her points the other day. So she's been playing incredibly well. She's also left-handed. That helps. Not a lot of left-handed players in the league, so people aren't used to guarding lefties. But, also she shoots like 60% all the time, so that helps too. No one else does that. So
how different is that defensively to defend against a lefty interior? We've talked about it in volleyball, for example. There aren't many lefties, so usually they hit on the right side, but then if you get them hitting on the left side, it just really presents a different look. And maybe they aren't better or worse, but it's just physically different.
Right.
And as a defender, I don't always know how to physically approach that.
Right.
So is there a pronounced difference defensively against somebody who shoots with a different hand?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think naturally it's so rare to have a lefty in the post. I mean, you usually, like last year we had like one. This year we have like one, and that's Madeline in our league. Like that will actually be dominant, and so you're naturally just used to guarding right-handed players. And no matter how much you prep and things like that, it's just not the natural instinct to force people right. It's the natural instinct to force people left. And so just, I mean, getting through that, and then even with the prep, you might do it a couple times, but then they're going to forget, or they're not going to remember that she's a lefty. Same thing with on the perimeter, too. So naturally force people left, force them into their weak hand, but then when they're right-handed, it just feels unnatural to force them to the right. So, I mean, and obviously they'll prep for her going that direction, and then that's on us to make sure she has some stuff in her bag to go to the right. But, yeah, it's just not natural defensively to force that direction or eliminate them from using their left hand, because usually it's not the dominant hand. So, yeah.
I think I went a step too far when I brought this up, because she's not just a block and in player. That's where she got almost all of her points against Sterling over the weekend. But against Emporia, she flashed mid-range, foul line, and out. So, I mean, she's clearly got a lot of different weapons, a lot of different tools in that tool bag that you were just hinting at that has made her a really lethal weapon for you guys, especially since conference play has started. So do you think that has kind of opened up options for players like Hannah Smith to not be, kind of to call back to what you said earlier, not be the first and maybe the primary key of any defense?
Yeah.
You know, obviously you got to respect her because she's a good shooter, but now you, at this point of the season, everybody else can look around and say, all right, we got plenty of other players we got to account for as well.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the great thing about our starting five is that it's great that Madeline's scoring, because it'll take away from some of the other players on the team. And then when Hannah Pinkston scores, and it takes away from Madeline and the other Hannah. And Aubrey's a great driver, and Marley can shoot it as well and can score from any level, really. So it takes away from a lot of those other players that, especially even coming off the bench, the specialty players that are shooters or drivers or post players, really just spreads the floor and makes it a lot easier for us to attack in different ways, which is nice for our offensive sets as well, because there's lots of different attacks that we can choose and go for depending on who's in the game and what we're trying to get. But yeah, I think it's great, and Madeline is playing really, really well. She's an incredible shooter, and I'm trying to get her to shoot threes. So whenever she starts busting threes, then we're going to be good.
That would be interesting.
She can shoot it. I don't know why she doesn't, but she can shoot it.
I believe it. I mean, based on her form.
Oh yeah, she can hit it from out there. She just not yet.
I guess it's something you physically have to work out towards, especially if you're used to being somewhere else. Then put yourself out there.
Yeah, I'm saying let it fly.
We've seen forwards on y'all's team shoot threes this year. This year especially. I mean, Morgan,
Hannah,
EJ, they all shoot threes. I mean, do they hit 5 a game? No, but it's just, I mean, it's part of the game.
Yeah.
And I mean, Morgan, especially over the last couple of years, has hit threes.
She's usually 1 for 2 in a game if she gets 2 shots.
Very true.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the way that the game is going, correct?
Sure.
I mean, we see that in professional basketball, sure, but I think even at this level, and even, I don't want to make it sound like it's, a second-class sport or anything like that, but I mean, we see that especially in men's basketball.
Yeah.
But I think it's very true in women's basketball as well. Bigs need to be able to shoot, range, three-pointers especially, and I think that's true in this conference too.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, there's several teams that have bigs that shoot from outside, Tabor being one of them, St. Mary's being one of them, so, yeah.
We wanted to talk specifically about y'all's second conference win this year.
Sure.
York, a different type of team compared to Southwestern. They've got an experienced coach. They've got a number of players back. Not the most senior team in the conference by any means, but more experience compared to Southwestern.
Yep.
And you guys ended up beating them pretty handily. It didn't look like that 100% of the time, but by the end of the game, that ended up being a comprehensive win for you guys to get to 2 wins on the conference season. So how would you sum up that game against the Panthers?
York was a pretty big moment for us just because coming in, we were down 12 at halftime, I believe. We got down 14 in the first half. And then to have that comeback win in a 34-point swing, basically, I think it was, maybe 35.
That's right.
And then to go up by 18 18.
That's right.
21, 18.
Yeah, it was 18.
In the fourth quarter was huge. So I think that was just huge for morale, just like to get over the hump of, okay, even though you're down, we can still come back and win. There's still plenty of time. A lot of things can happen. We just got to take it one play at a time. And slowly but surely we cut that lead pretty quick. And then it was pretty close, and then we just pulled away towards the end in the fourth quarter. Got really hot, started hitting shots, and the girls were running, executing our plays to a T, including knocking down every single shot in the fourth quarter. And they were on fire. It was awesome. It was great. They were getting stops on the defensive end and playing really, really well.
It was kind of one of those games because I was doing the live stats, so I'm sitting on the end of the table opposite of you guys, and I just look up at the scoreboard in the first half, and I mean this honestly, because I'm looking up and I'm like, it's a 10-point game. In the first half, it did not feel like that because of how close the first quarter was, and you look up and they're up by 15, and then you turn around at the same point in the fourth quarter, it's like, we're up by 15.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of there wasn't anything for me, just the massive momentum swing or a massive 30-point run or anything like that really started to turn the tide. It just kind of was a steady process for you guys. And that was what was most impressive for me because it was just, like I said, you steadily wrested control, and once you did, never gave it up. And I thought that was it's a solid team. I think York will be okay this year, so that would that was an impressive win, I thought, for you guys to get to 2 wins on the year.
It was, yeah. They played very hard, and they have some weapons that are pretty solid for them. And, it was a really good win for us.
We talked about kind of the I want to say the reliance, but the high usage of the starting five. It's pretty common across a lot of different teams. I know you and I both follow a program that likes to use its starting 5 or 6 pretty heavily over the course of history. But at this point, we've also seen a lot of other players kind of, if you will, jump in and have key moments, big games. The York game was the Cat Stanley game. I thought Anastasia Wright played really well against Sterling. You gave her a lot of run off the bench in that game. So we've seen a lot of different players kind of jump in at times this year. Has that been – how have you kind of developed that part of the team to kind of mix them into the established group that you've now set up, as you just outlined, in your starting 5 or 6?
Yeah, we're working on it still. I think I just really try to I'm definitely still figuring it out, but really try to encourage them that anybody can step up off the bench and have a great night, and every night we need a couple of them to step in off the bench and have a really big night. And just like every night might not be your night, but any night could be your night. And I play a lot of them, give them all opportunities most games, and we just need that consistency of coming off the bench and playing solid defense and doing what you're supposed to do on the offensive end of the floor. And yeah, we've had several. Daisy Washington was huge in the York game. She only played 10 minutes, I think, 8 or 9 minutes. Had 2 huge offensive rebounds. Had a coast-to-coast and one that brought us within a point, and it was like those were huge minutes. She got a huge stop at the end of the first half when we needed her to, and I threw her in for a minute. So like those are huge plays. And then obviously, like you said, Kathleen Stanley at Southwestern, she came in and hit should have been 4 threes, but she had her foot on the line. So three threes and a 2, huge minutes. So, and then Stasia did a great job at Sterling of just coming in and playing incredible defense and taking it to the rim and really trying to get in there and penetrate and score. And EJ's had moments and Mo's had moments, so they're all doing a good job. It's just finding the consistency day in and day out with who's coming off the bench and what they're going to provide for us. So they're all doing a good job, and like I said, each night has been someone different, so it's probably going to continue that way.
I think that's maybe nerve-wracking, I guess, because you don't know where it's coming from as a coach. But if you have that mindset, that mentality as a group that you've tried to instill, you just mentioned, hopefully that means everybody rises to that and is ready to go.
We're
whenever.
Working on it.
Understandable.
Yeah. It's tough.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying it's tough to come off the bench. It's a lot of pressure to go in there and be great. So it's tough, and we're working on it, and we've had each game somebody step up and do it. Now we need the rest of them to do it all the time. So.
It's really hard, I feel. I was no college basketball player, but coming from the hockey world, even if you know that you are a fourth liner and you might only get out there for 5 minutes of a game, it's not quite the same as 5 minutes in basketball, but it's more or less the same.
Yeah.
So if you know that that is what you're going to do, or I'm in soccer, I'm going to come in for the last 5 minutes of both halves, which we've had players like that over the years here. If you know that, then it's up to you, I feel, to make the most of that and then go out there and play at 150% for those 5 minutes, because even if you realize, well, this might be the only time I get out there for today, it's incumbent upon you to make it so that is as you are as effective as you can be for as long as you get to be out there.
Right. Yeah. I just read a quote, listened to a press conference from Dawn Staley, South Carolina's coach, and she made a comment about it to where she just said, whatever minutes you're given, if you play great, then you're going to extend those minutes. If you don't, then unfortunately they got to go to someone else, because we're just in the spot where, sorry, but if that's you that doesn't play great, then those minutes have to go to someone else. That's just how the ball rolls, and that's just how the game goes. So, but if you play great, then you extend those minutes, and that's what you're striving to do. So just got to make sure that they come off the bench with confidence and belief in themselves that they can handle anything and they're good to go.
That pie can only be carved up in so many ways. At some point, somebody's got to get those minutes, and it's going to go to the players who are being most effective with what they have. It's just kind of natural, I think, as a coach.
Yeah.
You'll have a little bit of time off from competition now. Next Tuesday, December 19th at William Jewell, your second exhibition game of the season. I had to ask you about what those are like for you and your team. We've talked with men's coach Tyler Bradyhoft about this a lot, because they are playing so freaking many of those NCAA Division 1 or 2 schools exhibition games. This will be number 2 for you guys. So what are those games like compared to anything else that you might have on that week? Like the week that you guys were at Emporia, there were 2 other games coming up that week. So what's it like preparing for that? And then what was that game like for you guys as a team compared to maybe anything else?
Emporia State?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had 2 conference games that week as well. So with that one, it wasn't as much preparation for beating them. Not because we didn't want to win. We wanted to win, but we were more focused on what we had coming up. We were playing Tabor that week, I believe, and that's a really tough game for us, so we were really focused on that. And really, it's just a good opportunity for us to play a high-level team. And if we're working on something, to try and implement it there, work on it there when we're able to play someone that's not ourselves. So for Emporia, we were working on a few things defensively that we wanted to try out to see if we wanted to continue to run them for Tabor, or that we knew we were going to run at Tabor. So different ways to guard things defensively, ball screens and press and things like that. So and then offensively too, if we throw in a new play or something like that at practice, just to get opportunities to run some sets, run an offense against a different defense who doesn't know what's coming. So really just to work on ourselves mostly is the approach that I kind of take for it. William Jewell will be pretty similar. There's no one else around us, so it's a little different take on that because we're not preparing for anybody. It's just going to be some things that we really want to work on, have some goals defensively of kind of a score we want to hold them at, or offensively what we really want to focus on working on and set some goals there of, team goals, how many offensive rebounds we want to get, or things like that. And obviously we're playing to win, and if we're in that position at the end, then we're going to play to win. But if we're not and we achieve those other goals, then that's okay. Then we come out with positive attitudes, and we came and did what we wanted to do, and that's why we're there. So
that program is one that has a lot of connections to Avila women's basketball over the years. So does that have any added imports to the game next week, or am I making a storyline where one doesn't exist?
Not necessarily. I'm very familiar with the William Jewell basketball team. Played them as a player, coached against them as a coach. We've had players from William Jewell at Avila, and it'll be good for us. We played them very close last year. The girls really stepped up in our scrimmage. It was just a 2-point game, so that was a lot of fun for them and for us to see them compete with a D2 team. This year they got a new coach. They're a little bit better this year, and but they play really similar to us. So that's also why I schedule teams like Jewell, because they play the same style of game that we do, and it's just an opportunity for us to play a team who's a little bit bigger, a little more physical, a little more athletic, and see how we can compete with them. So
hopefully they don't have a former KCAC player that's just going to come in and do the exact same thing that she did at her former school there. I don't think they have anybody like that,
they
right?
They don't. Yeah, they don't.
Yeah, I was listening to the Emporia State game, and you and I talked about this a little bit.
2 KCAC players.
And it's just like, here
they go.
We've seen this story before. They're just
exactly
wearing a different color.
Exactly. I know. Yeah, that was frustrating.
Yeah, it's just like they're gone. Are they?
Yeah.
And we still got to deal with them.
We still got to deal with them.
They're out of Division II, and we still got to deal with them.
I know. Yeah.
Oh, well.
Oh, well.
Well, Avila's next crack at a Division II comes next Tuesday, December 19th at William Jewell, 1 p.m. tip. And then the Eagles will close out 2023 on December the 30th at College of St. Mary. So December 19th at William Jewell, December 30th at College of St. Mary, the final 2 games in 2023 for Avila women's basketball. You see them back at, I know, hard to believe, we're almost midway through December. Then you will get to see the Eagles at home to kickstart 2024 on January 3rd against Oklahoma Wesleyan. Women at 6, men at 8, our first home game of the new year. That is head women's basketball coach Remy Wolfe. Thanks for joining us, Coach.
Thanks, Tim.
This
Appreciate it.
you're no problem. Thank you. This is Eye on the Eagles. We will be right back with our next coach. Welcome back to Eye on the Eagles, the official coaches show of Avila Athletics. Tim Hackett now joined by head dance coach Cindy Freeman. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thank you.
It has been a busy time of year for you guys. We're thinking end of the semester, there's less going on for all of our students and athletes. Not necessarily the case because your team has been very busy over the last couple of weeks with some local showcases, combines that you guys have been a part of. So what can you tell me about what's been new in the world of Avila dance over the last couple of weeks?
Well, we've had choreographers come in working on our nationals pieces, and then we've been doing combines and recruiting events. So 2 weeks ago, we were at KU with 27 other universities and colleges working a combine with 120 athletes. Took some of my dancers up there to help me with that, and then we spent the whole day there. And then we had our hip-hop choreographers in 3 weeks ago, spent 2 full days working on our hip-hop routine for nationals. And then right before the KU combine, we also worked on our jazz piece for nationals. And this past weekend, we did another recruiting event at at Liberty High School. It's called the Casey Classic, and the girls danced at that. So we've been pretty busy.
What can we'll talk about nationals in a minute. So what can you tell us about what those combines do for you guys? Because I understand that, y'all sport is different from, a sport like we just talked about with Coach Wolfe, where you might go to a game to scout players. You might run a clinic. You might, various things. I'm clearly no coach, right? Mm-hmm. But it's different for you guys because you're not going to a game to watch the athlete. You might be there to watch them on the sideline, but there's a lot of different other avenues that are perhaps more prudent for you guys to find potential athletes. And my understanding is that those events, those combines types of things are a prime opportunity for you guys to that effect.
They are. And the culture of dance is really different than the culture of other sports. And I can say that I've always recruited my dancers a little bit different than some of the other schools. I've always went and watched dancers at studios, at dance competitions, at practices, and made offers, kind of like a basketball coach would do at watching a game. Most teams did not do that. And then when we had the pandemic happen, coaches started inventing new ways to recruit, and they started having these dancers send them videos and started recruiting differently because they weren't having in-person auditions because of the pandemic. So a lot of the coaches have started recruiting the way I've recruited for a long time. And so the combines, right before actually the pandemic hit, the combines started becoming more popular, but a lot of the coaches were kind of using them as an avenue to invite recruits to the tryouts, but not actually making offers to the recruits. Some of the smaller schools like Avila, we were making offers at those combines, but now some of the bigger schools are starting to kind of do things the way we've done it and not always having the big tryouts. So a lot of times we would go to those combines and we'd make offers to the kids. Well, a lot of the kids, everybody wants to be a Division I dancer. So we make offers to them and we let them know that we would love to have them on our team. And sometimes you have to wait for those April tryouts and the big schools to have their auditions and then see kind of where things fall. But a lot of the bigger schools are starting to make offers and sign kids early on, just like we do. So things are kind of changing and evolving in the dance world and the cheer world, to be honest, right now. And I think a lot of that happened through kind of the way things happen and evolve through the pandemic. So,
and I think that kind of proves that there's a lot of really quality dancers and athletes at those events. If, it's not, quote unquote, just you guys in schools like us that are going to those with the express purpose of bringing them into to future squads directly. You got a lot of other schools from a lot of different places that are now realizing this is, a smart avenue for us. It's prudent. We can get a lot of bang for our buck, if you will. But also, we're going there because we're going to see a lot of quality dancers and a lot of quality individuals. So that my guess is that means that those types of events are going to be even bigger, at least for the time being.
It is, and it's a great opportunity for the dancers because, you get your name, your email, your phone number, and all these coaches can get out there and watch you. And then, to be honest, you're sitting there watching these dancers and you're following on social media. And as I was going through following them, I saw, some of the kids talking about, their parents were saying, wow, my daughter just got 10 offers from being watched at this combine. What a great opportunity. And, dancers aren't used to that. And so it's really fun to watch how excited they get when they have universities and colleges approach them like that, because they just don't have they're just not used to it. Like the basketball players and the football players and the baseball players and softball players are. So it's really fun to watch it. Yeah.
What was that event at Liberty like? Because it was an opportunity for you guys to go out there and compete, showcase your stuff, and we know what you can do. And I think at this level in our conference, certainly we know what your teams have been capable of over the years. But it's a literal outlet for you guys to go out there and showcase to a large group what you can do.
It was fun because it was a high school regional, and so there was only a few colleges there, and it was a lot of fun because the kids are super excited to see the college girls dance. And so Northwest Missouri State was there. We were there. I can't remember what other universities were there. There weren't that many. And I know a lot of the people walked up to me and they said, oh, we were so excited to watch the college kids dance. And so the crowd is really receptive and they're screaming. And then we posted our video afterwards, and we got a lot of great comments on it. And people say, the college dance is just a whole other level. And, and it's just fun. It's just fun. And the girls, they feel proud when they leave the floor because they get such a good reception. So it was fun.
Is that kind of a way all right, before I ask that question, who usually makes up the audience for events like that? Is it prospective dancers, their families? Who's usually in there?
Yeah, prospective dancers, their families, and then, of course, the judges from the competitions are there. So a lot of my former dancers are judging or coaching, and so I get to see a lot of the, my alums. A lot of people I've recruited and maybe not gotten on my team, but I still know, that have danced other places. So it's really fun to see a lot of people that we know, through the dance network, because it's a pretty small world, actually,
Sure.
So we had a lot of fun. A lot of dance studio people that I saw there. Yeah, it was a great day. So
how much is something like that beneficial to your sport, or maybe a sport like cheer? Because if I'm in the crowd, and again, I'm no dancer, but you and I speak somewhat of the same language to some extent based on our histories. But if I'm thinking about joining a college dance team and I see a team that looks great, that is choreographed really well, is cohesive, all this stuff, that would be something that would be appealing to me as a prospective dancer, because now I get to physically see you and your team out there right in front of me. And so, yeah, they do get to see 3 or 4 other universities that do the same thing. That's true, but they do get to see you guys, and now I start to maybe envision myself on that team wearing that uniform, all that stuff in the future, just because I physically get to see them in front of me rather than maybe just, watching clips or watching a live stream.
It is. And also the girls are there kind of, we go early and we stay a little bit after, so the girls are kind of walking around talking to people, and it gives them an opportunity, because sometimes the kids just want to walk up and talk to one of the dancers, and I tell them that. I say, I will talk to the high school kids, and that's great, but they really want to talk to you. They want to hear what you think about the program and what you think about being a college dancer. So we try to stay there and support the high school kids and talk to them and mingle and everything. So it's a good opportunity for the kids to get to know some of the college kids, and they love that. And we walk around and talk to them. Plus, the girls, a lot of them, their high school teams are there competing, so they try to get there early enough to watch their high school teams compete and talk to them. A couple of them actually choreographed pieces for their high school teams, so they were there watching their high school teams compete pieces that they actually had a part in, So it was a lot of fun. And like I said, a lot of my former dancers are coaches, so we got to see them. And my daughter was there because a lot of her dancers were competing, and it was just a lot of fun. I saw a lot of people I knew, so yeah, it was great.
A few months away from a trip back to nationals in Florida, and we don't even need to go into how successful you guys have been there over the last few years, because I think everybody on our side of things knows that by now, and we understand that, preparation for those events doesn't happen the week before, but I feel like many of us don't understand how soon on you guys start preparing for that. Now, it starts obviously with your first bit of conditioning and team workouts and things like that, but in terms of concisely preparing for nationals performances specifically, that has been something that you guys have been focusing on heavily over the last couple of weeks to prepare for that performance in April. So what can you tell us about what that process is like now in November and December, knowing that you don't have to perform it for real until April?
Well, right now, to be quite honest, a lot of what I'm doing to get ready is trying to get people healthy. We've had a lot of injury problems, and been working a lot with the physical therapists and the athletic trainers, just trying to get the kids healthy. So over break, we're spending a lot of time resting and trying to get the kids where they need to be so they're ready to hit the weights. And practice again when they get back. And, of course, we do have a strength and conditioning program they're working on while they're off. But I have a couple girls that I've told to just totally take it off. And then also it's funny because we had Coach C, our strength and conditioning coach. It was funny because when he first started working with our girls, he'd never worked with dancers before. Now he gets it. I mean, he critiques them. He tells them what they're doing wrong. It's really fun to watch him, talk to the girls about everything. And so the other day I said, why don't you come watch our hip-hop dance so you can kind of see what they need to do, because that helps him figure out what he wants them to do in their workouts. And so he came and watched their dance, and he loved it. And he said, okay, I know what I need to do then, and he kind of figured it out. So that was fun to kind of incorporate him into what they're doing and to help him know what he wants to kind of figure out and add into their workout. So
that's brilliant.
Yeah, and it is good because it helps him know what he needs to do on his end. So to be honest, yeah, I mean, we want them to be working on things and going through the choreography in their mind. But right now on this break, it's more about doing the strength and conditioning, but not doing, if they're having like I've had a couple girls having back problems, so they're going to have to be really careful on break and be more just, I don't know, in tune with their bodies and trying to get healthy and only do what they can do to let their bodies heal. Otherwise, the girls are doing their workouts, and then, as we say in the dance business, they're only going to be able to market. They're not going to be able to be dancing full out right now because they need to take care of their bodies. So just going over the choreography and make sure they're keeping that choreography fresh in their head until we come back. So they need the mental and the physical rest a little bit right now. So
here's an inside baseball question for you then, as a dancer and as a coach. How much can an athlete learn the choreography that you guys have been working on over the last month, knowing that they physically are not at 100% at their ability to perform that right now? You're assuming and you're working on getting them back to 100% by the time we hit March and April. But how much can they learn right now, knowing that since it's obviously such a tactile sport where you have to get out there and do it, right? It's not as much film study. It's a lot more reps and getting out there. How much can they do right now, knowing that they physically can't be out there as much as you'd like them to be?
It's interesting because you can learn it. One of my dancers had major hip surgery in July, and she just came back. And if you watched her dance on Saturday, you would have never known she's been sitting for 5 months because she's so focused. She never missed a beat. Now, is everybody like that? No. But you would have never known she's been sitting for 5 months. She had everything. I mean, she looked just like everybody else on the floor. Now, for some people, that's harder. I know one of my girls that was hurt, she said, I can't sit here and learn the choreography. I need to at least be standing up learning it. So everybody's kind of different, so it kind of depends on the person. They're all kind of different in the way they process things, when they're injured. So it just depends. Not a good answer, sorry.
No, it is a good answer. I mean, the reality is that it's different for everybody, which, I mean, I feel like we kind of knew that. But at the same time, I guess, the reason I was asking is that, again, having been in this world at a smaller level, it's hard to just kind of sit there, for me at least, and maybe this is just for me, but, we understand that, we've got to be in a certain place and move to another place with other people also doing the same thing.
Right.
So it was hard for me to know where I need to be if I'm not physically out there right now. So I imagine it's hard as a coach for you to envision, pick whoever you're thinking of. When we're at full strength, they're going to be here doing this and moving here at this point. It's probably hard to conceptualize that if you can't see it in front of you. And it's nobody's fault, but it just makes it harder to scheme, to place, to choreograph, all that stuff, I imagine.
Well, and I'll tell you, the one that's been out for 5 months, she's probably the exception to the rule. Yeah. Honestly, I've never seen anybody who can sit like she's been sitting and jump right back in like that and not miss a beat. I mean, I think she is truly the exception to the rule, to be honest. Yeah, it's amazing to me, and I've told her that, and I brag about her to the rest of the team all the time and say, man, you are so on top of it. You're blowing my mind right now, so kudos to her,
And that is I think that's true of any sport, but especially for yours, where you can just plug somebody back in like that, because that just completely vanishes all of the, concerns that I was just outlining, where it's like, all right, well, I don't really know what it's going to look like when we throw this person back in. We know it's going to be better because they're good, but physically we don't know what it's going to look like with the spacing and all that stuff. But with somebody like that, you realize that there's nothing to worry about because they're just going to take it off and run.
Well, and last Saturday at our performance for KC Classic, one of our juniors who has a back injury that we had to take out at the last minute. So we weren't expecting to have to do that. I put that girl who's been hurt for 5 months in her spot on Thursday, and she performed on Saturday. She hasn't danced in 5 months, and she went into that spot, and you would have never known. It was unreal. I mean, she just slayed it.
Impressive turnaround.
Very much so. Yeah, I was really, and she's a freshman.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's got to bode well, right?
Yep, she's a gamer.
No doubt.
Yeah, she really is.
That's, kind of proves what you were saying earlier about how ready and how prepared you are in the recovery process and the ability to kind of absorb the teaching, the practice that the rest of the team had been doing, even with her sideline, not physically able to be out there at 100%.
Right.
To be out there and ready to go, even at that point, it says a lot to think about what she does and what the team does.
Yeah, and you never know. We always talk about it as coaches. You never know about your freshmen until you get them at nationals that first year and know how, because mentally you just never know how kids are going to handle it.
Different territory, right?
Yeah, but I feel like I have kind of a good idea about that one just because of how she handled that situation. So
I know how excited you've been about this team, this group, just because of how long you've known just about all of them, and now getting to something that we talked about before, but getting now the opportunity to see all of them here. So it's a little bit of a realization, right, for you. But now you've got the opportunity to play with those chess pieces and align them the way that you want. It's less a puzzle where you know how it's all going to go. So I don't know what the best analogy there is, but you get to actually control that board the way that you want it to. So now that you're a few months into this setup and a few months away from nationals competition, which is obviously the biggest thing that you're shooting for, how do you feel about this year's team so far?
I feel really good. What's been really fun to watch is as a dance coach, what's fun is to be able to tell your choreographers, you can put anybody anywhere on the floor you want them, and it's not going to matter who's where. So when you're doing the staging process and you want to just keep moving people everywhere, you can actually do that. So you don't have to keep this person or these 5 people towards the front. You literally can move everybody all over the floor, and both dances, and that's how we're doing these dances. So for our choreographers, it's a lot easier, but also when the judges are watching, they should recognize that, and that should show them what a strong team we have. And for me, it's a lot of fun. I think for the girls, it should be a lot of fun because they're all going to get, they should all feel like they're getting recognized, throughout the pieces the whole time. And I don't know, it's just really fun. It's just a really fun process, and I'm so proud of them, and I'm so excited for this year. I feel really lucky. So
you kind of took the words out of my mouth, because that is kind of what I was expecting with how you started that answer, that if you've got people and a whole team of people, a whole team of dancers that are capable of moving into different roles and selfless enough to kind of take a step back, even if it's for only a few measures or for one piece, whatever the case might be, then if you've got that mentality combined with that ability, that has to be something that a group of judges is going to recognize, because it's not just, I think, you tell me if, let's say, you've got 2 or 3 lines and everybody's standing there for the entire, obviously we're not physically standing right there, but we're not shifting that over the length of a performance. That could be really, really good. But then if you've got all those levels kind of interchanging, I guess that is A, more complicated, and B, visually more interesting, and would probably be something that would get you a higher score in a competition.
It should, yeah. And even like Saturday, when we just did a game day dance, we were doing a hip-hop dance. It was really fun that Olivia had choreographed. In the middle of the dance, we had a really cool trick, a hard trick actually, pop up back center from one of our sophomores. And, a lot of times you don't expect that.
Sure.
You expect a trick to pop up front center, right?
Center.
So back center, everybody else went down, and one of the girls back center did a really hard tumbling trick. Things like that where it's just fun whenever you can do those types of things. So it was fun.
And that's got to be from a visual perspective. And I'm thinking about, if I were a judge, and I'm certainly no judge, you are. So if you were to see something like that, it's not what you're expecting. So that's either a bad thing because, somebody falls, let's say, and you're like, wasn't expecting that. That's minus 30 points or whatever. But if you see something that you aren't expecting and it's good, that means, my guess is honestly that let's say that you see something you're not expecting and it's good, it's probably about on par with something that you might be expecting that is really good, just because it's just kind of unusual, right? Is that kind of how people might approach that? It's like, well, I wasn't expecting that and it looked really good, so therefore it was that deserves some points.
It should be. when I started judging, I've judged nationals for probably like 20 years, but I remember one of the judges I sat next to one of my first years, and she'd been judging forever. She was a seasoned judge, and she told me one time, she goes, well, you know what I do when I watch the turn combo? And I said, no, what do you do? And she goes, I watch the back end turner because I know that's where they're probably going to put one of their weaker turners. And I watch and see how that turner can turn. I go, oh, that's a good idea, you know. She goes, I'm not going to watch the front center turner because I know they're going to put their best turner right there, you know. And I said, oh, that's a good idea. You know, I had never thought about that. And then she told me that. So then I was like, okay, that's a good idea. So anyway, took that with me, and it's always been in my brain ever since that first time I judged. So yeah.
There are a couple of our athletes, less so our coaches, but a couple of our athletes that I've talked to over the years that are officials in their sport. And I'm thinking of one soccer player, especially this year, that I talked to who does officiate high school and, you know, club and whatever matches on the side. And she was telling me this year that really did help to kind of key her in about, you know, what are they looking for, how does this now, how can I be a better athlete was kind of what I was asking her. And then it's also, you know, what can I get away with? But it's also, I understand kind of what they're looking for, so I know what to show them and what not to. And some of our coaches have kind of told me the same thing there. But you are, as an official, right, for your sport, not at the same time, obviously, as you're coaching, but you see that world, I think, more so than most coaches in their given sport might. So does that, and it clearly does inform some of the things that you do as a coach, because you've kind of taken some lessons from, here's what judges are looking for traditionally, here's what they do. We've talked with judges over the years when they've come to our events, like that cheer event that we've had. I got to learn about, you know, what judges are doing, what they're looking for, their temperament, things like that. So surely being one also helps to kind of inform what you're going to do as a coach to now present yourselves in a more appealing fashion, I guess.
Yeah, it does, but sometimes it also makes you overthink things a little bit. And I know this year, and this kind of takes me back to what I just said about what that judge told me about the turn formation. This year, we're doing something totally different. We're not thinking about where we're putting people in the turn formation. When my daughter is choreographing our jazz piece, and so what she said was, she goes, Mom, are you okay with me letting that turn formation happen organically wherever the choreography takes it? I said, yes, completely. So we aren't going to think about who we're putting where. We're choreographing up to that part of the dance, and wherever we end up because we're confident that they're all going to be able to hit the turn. So wherever that judge looks, she's going to see people that can turn. So that's the way we're looking at it.
Nice.
Yeah.
We've talked about a couple of current or former standout dancers that you've had already since you've joined us today. There's one more that we need to talk about. I imagine some of our audience won't like us to talk about some of the things that happened on Sunday's Chiefs game, but there was one thing that happened there that is worth mentioning. I would love I'm going to just let you roll from here because you know a whole lot more about it and what it means. So go ahead and spill the beans for us. What did we learn on Sunday that is meaningful to you and to your team?
Well, one of my former dancers was named the Pro Bowl cheerleader for Chiefs yesterday, and so it was kind of funny how I found out because I was actually fundraising at the game in a concession stand, and I was standing there, and I was like, oh, there's Jamia on the monitor, and I told the lady standing next to me, I said, that's one of my former dancers, and it didn't even dawn on me why she was on there, and then I got my phone after we were done, and my assistant coach, who danced with Jamia on the team, she goes, did you see Jamia got Pro Bowl? And so that's why she was on the monitor, but I didn't know because I couldn't hear any sound. So after I got back on the bus to go to my car, I got to see the video and when they announced it and stuff. So I texted Jamia and told her how proud I was and congratulations. And she texted me back. But, I mean, Jamia is one of those kids as a coach that, I mean, I'm getting chills right now even talking about it. I'm about to cry. But when I got her on my team, I remember at the audition, I remember talking to Mandy, my daughter, and we were just like, oh, my gosh, this girl can do anything we ask her to do, whether it's turn or leap or do a trick or dance, or she's just a powerhouse. I mean, that was literally the word we used. And she's a dream to coach. She's a great student. She's one of the most respectful people you'll ever meet. She's an incredible human being. And we had to talk her into trying out for Chiefs. She didn't think she was going to do it. And then we did talk her into it, and I know the director for Chiefs, and I told her, I said, this one is a good one. And they've loved her ever since they took her on the team. And so when I saw that she got picked, I was not surprised. she's just a good representative of the city, of their franchise, of women in general, and I seriously could not be more proud of her. She was at my my nationals audition a few weeks ago. She came and helped me decide on what we were going to do with nationals, and she'll be a friend for life for me and of my program. And I just can't speak highly enough of her. If every single person came out of my program like that, and be like Jamia, Avila should be really proud of the kids we have come out of our university. That's all I can say.
Extremely well said. I know how much she meant to you, and she's been a part of the Chiefs cheerleader since I've been here at Avila. So I've only met her once or twice, but I know how much she meant to you as a member of the team.
I just love her. Yeah.
That's awesome. This is I haven't even done my research on this yet, so I will ask you a totally honest question that I don't know the answers to yet. Most of my questions are like that, but I truly don't know anything about this. So what does that honor mean? Because I imagine it's like the Pro Bowlers for the football players, where you get chosen by being ostensibly the best in the best in the NFL. So I imagine that this is one of those things where every team picks a cheerleader who is the best member of their team to represent them at the Pro Bowl. Is that how that works?
You know, it is, and I don't know if the team picks it and the coaches or how it works. I think the team votes. I'm assuming the staff has something to do with it, but I don't really know that. And then what happens is, I guess it's in Hawaii. I think it's always in Hawaii, isn't it? They get a lot of free merchandise from what I've heard. She gets to go to Hawaii for a week.
Could be worse.
Yeah, could be worse. Lots of appearances when she gets there. She gets to dance with all the other Pro Bowl cheerleaders, so she gets to have an amazing experience of performing with all those other NFL cheerleaders. I think it probably opens up some other opportunities if she has any interest in that. You know, I don't know, maybe advertising opportunities, things that she might want to do down the road. I don't know. And I mean, I think the sky could be the limit for Jamia if she chooses to do anything else. I mean, she could be a broadcaster. She could do anything. Now, her area of study was graphic design. She's an artist, and she's very good at it. But I think she could do anything she wanted to do. So we'll see where things take her. I think this is her last year on Chiefs, but I don't know that for sure. She might do another year. But, yeah, I can't wait to see this journey and watch this whole thing play out. She's been there for both of the Super Bowl wins. So she's got one championship ring and the first time they got a necklace.
Okay.
So she's got some pretty cool pictures of all of that on her social media. She's been picked to represent the team at Pro Action, which was when they learned choreography with all the other pro teams, and she's come back and taught her fellow dancers that. She's been a real force in the Kansas City Chiefs cheerleader organization for the team, and I couldn't be prouder of her.
I think there's a lot more to come on this story. We will learn a lot more, and we'll have a lot more as we get closer to the Pro Bowl in a couple of months. But that is a big deal, and it's a big deal for Avila University and for Avila Athletics to see an alum excel in their area of expertise. I mean, we've got a few obviously that I can think of that have moved on to their post-playing days that are now excellent members of society and things like that. But she is technically a pro in her sport. It's a little bit different, we understand, but she's still a performer, and she's done an extremely good job of that, not just in terms of what physically she can do on the field, but as a representative and as an ambassador and as a representative of the team and of our team.
Right.
So we don't get to see that too often necessarily, and I think that is I truly think that is a really cool, unique opportunity for her and for you.
Yeah, really proud of her.
A lot more to come on that as we get closer. And, of course, you will get to see the Glitter Girls and our cheer team in person as we get going into the new year. We're done with home events in terms of home basketball, at least. We do have the Eagle Duels coming up at the end of this week. Women's wrestling all day on Friday starting at 11. Men's wrestling all day on Saturday starting at 10. You can watch all of that, formats all at once. All-day wrestling action on Friday and Saturday at Maybe Fieldhouse. If you can't be there, you can watch live and for free right here on the Avila Sports Network. You'll get to see cheer and dance back in person next month as we get into the new year. Hard to believe, but our first home games then, January 3rd, Avila basketball against Oklahoma Wesleyan, women at 6, men at 8, and we'll see cheer and dance as we come back into the start of the school year as well. Head dance coach Cindy Freeman thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
This has been Eye on the Eagles. Thank you, as always, to Tanner's at Redbridge for hosting us. Thank you, as always, to executive producer Darian Miner, who's on the way to St. Louis at some point, for everything that he does for us. And thank you to all of us here, from all of us here at Avila Athletics. For all of us, I've been Tim Hackett. We'll see you next week, same time, same channel, our final episode of 2023. December 18th, December 18th, our final episode of the year at 11:30 right here on the Avila Sports Network. We'll see you then. Until then, so long.